Hey there, storytellers! Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the last book video of November before we start Bookmas. I am very excited to do so, but today's video is going to be a bit of a recommendations video. It is 10 books to get you through long winter nights. Now, I have broken these books down into sort of genre categories, if you will. I've picked a book, at least of the main genres I enjoy reading, and gave you a recommendation, or my personal recommendation, for what I think would be a great book for that category to get your mind wandering when things get cold and gloomy and you're stuck inside, at least if you live somewhere like I do, where there's snow and it's cold and mushy and it's not always pleasant to be outside it. Sometimes you just want to stay home and read. So without any further ado, let's get into these recommendations. The first genre is mystery, and for that I have to go with the queen of mysteries herself, Miss Agatha Christie, and I have to recommend Murder on the Orient Express. This takes place on a train while the passengers are trapped. They have nowhere to go, and it's the middle of winter, so it's cold and spooky, and somebody is found, of course, murdered. And Poirot has to figure out who done it, and like I said, they're all still stuck on the train with the murderer. There's nowhere for anyone to go. So it's kind of this locked room mystery wherein you're like, how did they get by and do this without anybody else noticing? And it's just, I remember loving this one. I think I'm going to give it a reread this year in the winter. Just something to get my brain going again. But I remember really enjoying this one. And of course, there's movies, so you can always watch the film adaptation after you read it, make a day of it. It's a good time. But because it's set on a spooky train in the middle of winter, I think it's kind of great for that mental space of like you're trapped and you feel kind of stir crazy, and it gives your brain somewhere to go. Next is fantasy, and for this I picked Ace of Spades by Amanda Foody. This is one of the more unique fantasies that I've ever read. I obviously have read plenty of fantasy in my time, and I have many that I love, but I would really recommend this one because I think it's pretty approachable for anybody, even if you're somebody who doesn't usually do the fantasy thing. There's magic and powers that everybody has, but it's kind of genetically based. So you have people who have different powers based on their lineage. So there's a sort of dominant parental talent, if you will, and a recessive one. And it's really cool to see how those play out for people in the world of Ace of Spades. But it also features gambling and the city of sin and a girl coming into her own power and meeting a boy who challenges her in the best way. They challenge each other, and they're just such a good team. It's such a fun read. I absolutely recommend this one. It's really, really fun, and because you're going to be so caught up in this story, you're not even going to notice how cold and blustery it is outside. Now, maybe those genres aren't for you and you tend to like to read something contemporary. For that, I am recommending Better Together by Christine Riccio. This follows two sisters who meet again after many years separated at a sort of rediscover yourself retreat, Parent Trap style, and they switch places Parent Trap style, except they're both adults, so it gets a little bit complicated and a little bit crazy. Both of the characters are so real in the sense that they have qualities that annoy me about them and qualities that I find really endearing, but I really enjoy both of them. They're both really relatable in their own ways, and I think it's just, if you enjoy the Parent Trap as a vibe, it's definitely the one for you. It has hardcore Parent Trap vibes with a big dose of magical realism, so it makes everything a little bit more complicated and a little bit more fun. I would absolutely recommend this one. It's just cozy and feel good, so I think it's just something you might need when you're cold and you don't feel good. Maybe your dislike of winter starts much earlier than when the snow hits the ground, but you want to be a little bit festive, you want to be in a better mood than totally hating middle of winter kind of vibes, and for that I recommend The Afterlife of Holly Chase. This is a Christmas Carol retelling. Think Tiny Tim and people getting done dirty by the Scrooge, basically. And you have The Afterlife of Holly Chase, pretty much, except it takes place in a modern setting, and there's a very fun twist to the whole Ghosts of Christmas Past, Present, and Future kind of thing, which I really enjoyed. I would very much recommend it. It takes a very, very modern twist on that whole thing, the whole ghost thing, as well as just sort of a more modern setting. So if you have always kind of been interested in the sort of Christmas Carol vibes, then this is the one for you. Now, I hear ya. You're saying, it's the middle of winter. I want to escape the winter vibes. I don't want to lean into the cold and the spooky and the fantasy vibes. I want to be thinking of warmer weather. And for that, I have To Catch a Pirate by Jade Parker. This is a little known novel that I found, I don't even remember where I found it, probably at a school book fair by chance, and fell in love with it. If you're somebody who likes Pirates of the Caribbean, this is definitely a novel for you. It follows our main character who's, what's her name? Annalisa Townsend. And she is very much like Elizabeth Swann. She's kind of feisty. She's not intimidated by pirates, so to speak. You know, she takes things seriously when she's in danger, but in the general sense, she's not intimidated by pirates. She's pretty fascinated by them and life at sea. And she's a pretty feisty, strong-willed woman who happens to meet a pirate who gets involved in her life, and he causes mischief and all this good stuff. It is so good. It's a little bit of a romance, so there's that to look forward to if you like that kind of thing. But for me, whenever I think of summer vibes, I tend to think of pirates, probably because I think of the ocean, and then I'm thinking of ships, and then I'm thinking of pirate ships, and you follow the train of thought. So this is one I would absolutely recommend if you're thinking of warmer weather, because it takes place in the Caribbean, so you get all those warm weather descriptions along with a little bit of pirate fun. But if romance is your thing and you hardcore want to lean into the romance side of things, I recommend Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey Mcquiston. This one took BookTube and Book Talk and Bookstagram by storm a couple years ago now, and it is definitely worth the hype. These two boys are so sassy and just, they butt heads all the time, but not in a not well matched kind of way. It's almost because they're too well matched that they butt heads, and they're just stubborn, which is why they are constantly kind of just rubbing up against each other the wrong way. But they're a really sweet match as well, and their story about falling in love with each other is pretty unique in the sense that one is the prince and the other is the son of the president. So not exactly the match you would necessarily think of, but I absolutely adore these characters. They're so funny. The book is fantastic. It's so well written, and you're rooting for them literally from the get-go. You can just tell that they're meant to be together, and you're just rooting for it. So if you really want to lean into the romance vibes and just have the really truly feel-good romance kind of thing going on, Red, White, and Royal Blue is for you. If, like me, you are someone who is very into YA novels, a little bit more than adult novels, I would recommend Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. This follows Kath, who is a freshman in college, and she's kind of learning to find her way without sort of the security blanket of her twin sister, who kind of insists that they go their separate ways and do their own thing in college. And Kath is sort of also learning to find her way as a writer, because she has a fiction teacher who encourages her to pursue her writing talents outside the world of fan fiction. And this is where I first met Simon and Baz, because they are characters sort of within the novel of Fangirl. But of course, it's a little bit more than Kath just sort of finding her way as a person and as a writer. There's a little bit of romance, but it's mostly just a coming of age. And I think it's a really good, well done, feel-good novel. It represents people with anxiety pretty well, in my opinion. Not everybody, of course, but you know, it represents one type of anxiety pretty well. And I think Kath and Levi are a really fun sort of duo. Just the way they play off of each other. They're both quirky, but in different ways, so it's really funny to see how they work. Now, I think I've made it pretty clear that historical fiction isn't my usual bag, but if it's yours, I do have a recommendation for you. If you haven't read it yet, you should. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a fictionalized sort of interview / biography of this fictional movie star, Evelyn Hugo, and there's this other girl, Monique, I think. Yeah, Monique, who is the only one that Evelyn will allow to interview her regarding her past and her life and her history up until this point. And there's a very interesting reason why that is the case, and it comes out of left, like it blew my mind. I was not expecting it, and it was a great little twist in a historical fiction novel, which I feel like I personally don't see a lot of those. I don't read a lot of historical fiction, which is probably why, but I digress. The story is just really well written, and Evelyn is kind of somebody you love to dislike. She's not the greatest person. She's made some major mistakes, but she's flawed and interesting and dynamic and powerful, and she's absolutely a really fun character to read, so I would very much recommend this if you are somebody who hasn't read it yet, but you like historical fiction. Now, maybe you're looking to work a little classics into your winter reading, and for that, I do have a personal recommendation, and that is Macbeth by William Shakespeare. This, of course, follows our titular character, Macbeth, who is a thane. He's somebody sort of nobility, but not the highest up you could get, and he encounters these 3 witches in the woods on his way back from battle who tell him, you know, you're gonna be king of Scotland, you just have to kill the king. And he tells his wife, who is the most ambitious woman in literary history, I think, because she's just straight up like, yeah, you're gonna kill the king. And he's like, I don't know about that. And she's like, no, you're gonna kill the king, because I'm a big queen. That's what we're doing. And so she forces him to kill the king, and then they both go crazy, which is fun in and of itself. But of course, there's ghosts and family drama because the king's sons also enter the party. They have entered the chat. Things get complicated in Macbeth, but I think it's great. It's got spooky fall vibes, so it's perfect for fall, but I also think it's perfect for winter if you haven't read it, because it's set in Scotland, so it's always kind of dreary and dark and rainy, and it's just that creepy, wintry atmosphere all the time. So definitely think if you're looking to pick up a classic this winter, Macbeth is the way to go, and it's not that long, so can you go wrong? And last but not least, maybe you're looking for little dark academia recommendations. Maybe you're somebody who likes to read dark academia in the winter, and for that, I have to say Discovery of Witches. It is so good, and it is so perfectly dark academia, and because it does take place sort of near the end of the year, it has that going into winter, cold, late fall kind of vibes, so I think you can get away with reading it in the middle of the winter if you want to. But it's great. It's set at Oxford. It's set in France. It's got a little bit of upstate New York, so there's across the gamut some fall season going on. But we've got witches, we've got vampires, we've got demons. Everybody's not meant to be friends, and then 2 people fall in love. One a vampire, one a witch, and of course, destiny's always bigger than that, so they are on a search for Ashmole 782, which is meant to unlock the secrets not only of their 2 species, but of demons as well, and it's kind of a big deal. So I would absolutely recommend it. It's got all the late fall, early winter, dark academia vibes. It's cozy. It describes food in detail, which I think many of us think about in colder months. We think of hearty, warm food, and believe me, it's described. So you will not be left wanting with Discovery of Witches. But that is it for my 10 books to get you through long winter nights recommendations video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by leaving a like down below. And if you want to keep up with me and all of my bookish adventures, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And of course, I highly recommend that you ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat, because it will notify you when I post new videos, which in the month of December for 25 whole days is going to be every single day, because Bookmas is right around the corner. We are approaching it, so get ready for all the holiday bookish vibes, because I have them planned and I'm ready to go. So definitely ring the bell so you get notified when those videos start going live. But for now, I'm gonna get going. If you have any recommendations reading wise to get people through long winter nights, leave those down in the comments below as well. I will see you guys for Bookmas. Bye.